On Easter Sunday, a lawsuit was filed in state court in Nevada against Hall of Fame tight end Shannon Sharpe because he has become such a massive media star, especially in the past few years. The lawsuit is going to attract a lot of attention.
He was supposed to be untouchable, a Hall of Fame legend, a three-time Super Bowl winner, the charismatic face of television debates, who turned Club Shay Shay into one of the hottest interview platforms in sports media. For years, Shannon Sharpe stood at the summit, admired for his wit, respected for his grind, envied for his deals, and yet, in the span of just a few months, his empire collapsed, like a house built on sand. At the center of it all is a lawsuit so explosive it could have been scripted by Hollywood. Gabrielle Zuniga, an OnlyFans starlet with a high-powered attorney, slapping Sharpe with a $50 million claim that has already reshaped his legacy and rattled the entire ESPN brand.
That's how we found out about the lawsuit against Shannon Sharpe. Now, this one has some very strong allegations: assault, battery, assault and battery, intentional infliction of emotional distress. The components obviously give it greater gravity than a car accident or any case based on some sort of negligent slip and fall, something like that, where someone was just being...
The headlines alone sound like a nightmare. Allegations of aggression, threats caught on leaked audio, whispers of kinky roleplay twisted into courtroom evidence. Sharpe has called it a shakedown. His lawyers have blasted it as blackmail, but perception moves faster than paperwork in the public square. His reputation bled out before the first gavel ever struck. Social media turned hostile overnight, and former allies fell silent. He was forced to step away from his coveted chair beside Stephen A. Smith on First Take, a humiliation few could have imagined when he inked his ESPN deal less than 2 years ago.
Once again, I've never seen anybody handle a situation worse than Shannon and his team. Like they just handled it wrong from the whole beginning.
Yeah, well.
And that's where the betrayal cuts deepest, because behind the scenes we keep hearing the same chilling whisper. Stephen A. himself may have had a hand in Sharpe's unraveling. To the outside world, they were partners, sparring brothers, a 1-2 punch that made mornings must-watch. But insiders now claim Smith played a longer game, feeding information to Zuniga's camp and greasing wheels inside Bristol so that Sharpe's suspension felt less like a reaction and more like a setup. Was this a calculated move to clear space at the table to remind everyone that only one voice truly rules the hallways of ESPN? The timing is uncanny. As Sharpe stumbles through courtrooms and scandal, Stephen A. has never looked stronger. His grip on First Take is firmer than ever, his influence with executives growing, his brand branching beyond sports into politics, late-night comedy, and even film cameos. It's the kind of ascension that raises eyebrows, especially when paired with the fact that Sharpe's sudden implosion handed Smith sole dominance over the very platform that once threatened to eclipse him. Could this really all be coincidence? Or is it a textbook case of keeping your friends close and your rivals closer?
Steve, Ricky, they've been a group. Everybody knows that. They've been aligned, and there are these alliances in comedy.
For Shannon, the fall has been brutal. He isn't just losing jobs, he's losing face. Charleston White, the outspoken internet provocateur, piled on gleefully, calling him a sellout and declaring on Instagram Live, "I believe her." That clip went viral, with White sneering that Sharpe liked his steak medium rare, while insisting he wasn't freaky enough for white women himself. White's attack was cruel, maybe unhinged, but it resonated with an audience that had already decided the football star wasn't the hero he portrayed on his podcasts. The image of Unc, the cool uncle sipping cognac while trading jokes with rappers, was suddenly recast as something far darker.
Why would his attorney offer that up publicly?
To me, her turning it down shows that it's not a money grab.
No, it shows that it's a bigger shakedown.
Then came the money. $50 million, a figure so outrageous it jolted the sports world into disbelief. What exactly was in Gabrielle Zuniga's arsenal that could push Sharpe into such a corner? Attorneys close to the case claim there are recordings, text messages dripping with race play and domination fantasies, even rumors of a full video clip that could be released in fragments to maximize humiliation. Sharpe himself all but confirmed the possibility when he warned fans that a tape might be cut to make him look guilty, taunting his accusers to release the full version if they dared. That isn't the language of a man in total control. That's the voice of someone fighting to keep the last scraps of dignity from slipping through his fingers. And just as the court filings grew thicker, Sharpe's past began to resurface like a curse. Old battery arrests from the 90s and early 2000s were dragged out of dusty archives. Michelle A. Evans, a former partner, resurfaced with harrowing stories of threats, control, and force. She said she lived in fear, claimed he threatened her life, and even alleged he put her under surveillance. Her lawsuit, long dismissed, suddenly gained fresh attention in the shadow of Zuniga's accusations. It painted a pattern, and in tabloid logic, pattern equals guilt. The narrative shifted from one explosive relationship gone wrong to a decades-long trail of women saying the same chilling thing.
And that the sex was about handcuffs, choking, putting on dog collars.
Do you get those at Petco?
But the real stinger? Rumors of a black book. Whispers among insiders suggest Zuniga's attorney, Tony Busby, is holding more than just receipts about Sharpe. There's talk of a private ledger, names of other high-profile figures, nights in LA that went further than anyone was supposed to know. If that book exists, Shannon's collapse may just be the beginning of a much larger reckoning. And in that shadow, Stephen A. Smith's role looks even murkier. Did he simply step back and watch his colleague implode, or did he hand the match to the woman who lit the fire? Either way, one man's empire lies in ruins, and the whispers suggest the rubble may soon bury others.
I'm one of the chosen high-ranked, know-the-dirt individuals, right? And so dirt responds as they should when the vacuum walks in.
Nah, come on. Are you a rapper? You rap on the side?
Clearly, sir, yes.
And then there's the rumor that refuses to fade, the one that insiders describe as the nuclear option, Shannon Sharpe's alleged black book. Not a little black contact list of casual friends, but a vault of names, details, and nights that could rock more than just one man's reputation. We're told it contains the kind of explicit logs that link athletes, entertainers, even executives to encounters they would never want to see the light of day. Imagine a diary with dates, places, and messages too incriminating to explain away. The whispers suggest it exists, and the whispers suggest Zuniga and her attorney Tony Busby may already have pieces of it. Could this be why so many of Sharpe's colleagues, the ones who once praised him, suddenly keep their distance? Could this be why the silence from certain locker rooms and boardrooms feels almost panicked? The implications are staggering. If that book ever leaked, we wouldn't just be talking about Shannon Sharpe anymore. We'd be talking about careers ending overnight, deals evaporating, families torn apart. The very networks that now claim neutrality might find their own staff entangled. And let's be honest, Hollywood and pro sports run on carefully guarded secrets. A scandal of that magnitude could set off dominoes we haven't seen since the biggest tabloid storms of the last 2 decades. Which raises a cruel irony. Is Sharpe clinging to the black book as his last insurance policy? A warning to those who might be pushing him to the edge?
Everything to happen immediately.
Absolutely.
Like, it's only
It's
Thursday.
instant. They want everything to instantly happen. It doesn't work like that.
The righteous people on Reddit, baby, they are dissecting and divulging right now, and they are.
While the black book lives in speculation, the resurfaced incidents from his career are painfully real. Buried in his FS1 years was the story of a production assistant who accused Sharpe of choking her in the workplace. At the time, it was brushed off as playful interaction, a phrase that now sounds more like spin than truth. Fox Sports quietly settled, reportedly paying several $100,000s to close the matter and seal it from public view. No press release, no admission of guilt, just another chapter filed away where no one was supposed to look again. But in 2025, nothing stays buried. The case is back in the spotlight, and it folds neatly into the growing narrative of aggression and payouts that stretch across decades.
Unlike the Deshaun Watson cases where there were 20-plus plaintiffs and they weren't really sure who the people were who were making the claims, in this case, Shannon Sharpe knows exactly who it is because there had been, and it's clear from the statement issued by his lawyer, Lanny Davis, there had been some pre-litigation efforts.
Patterns matter. When one accusation hits, skeptics can dismiss it as opportunism. When a second emerges, questions grow louder. But when we see restraining orders, past arrests, multi-million-dollar lawsuits, and now a secret settlement for choking a colleague, the storyline shifts. We aren't staring at a single misstep. We're staring at a pattern that feels too consistent to ignore. Each resurfaced report chips away at the idea that Sharpe is the victim of bad luck, and instead paints the picture of a man who has spent years dodging accountability with charm, cash, and connections. How many other complaints were silenced before they ever reached a courtroom?
Their regular routine was that Shannon, then they would.
Why was that relevant?
The darkest twist in this spiral came not from a courtroom filing or a restraining order, but from the revelation of text messages that hinted at Shannon Sharpe's alleged fascination with race play. These messages, graphic in nature, painted a disturbing picture of intimacy rooted not in love or respect, but in a performance of racial power dynamics. For a man who built his reputation on breaking barriers in football and later in media, the idea that he might have secretly indulged in one of society's most taboo fetishes sent shockwaves through fans and critics alike. It wasn't just about scandal anymore, it was about identity, about the private shadows behind a public figure who often spoke about pride, and representation, the controversy cut deeper because of what it symbolized. Race play is one of the most stigmatized corners of desire, a practice that forces uncomfortable questions about control, humiliation, and the lingering scars of history. To see Sharpe allegedly participating in that dynamic felt like a betrayal of the very communities he claimed to uplift. Fans who once saw him as a strong, unapologetic voice for Black excellence now found themselves questioning whether his private life undermined every speech, every commentary, every stand he ever took in public. It wasn't just about the messages themselves, it was about the hypocrisy they seemed to expose.
It's a claim against someone alleging that some rights were violated, and in most cases what's sought is compensation in the form of damages to make up for whatever it is the person did. And there are all sorts of civil lawsuits, car accidents, defamation. We hear about that a lot because people get sued about things that are said about them in media.
The messages that surfaced weren't isolated flirtations, but appeared to show a recurring theme, suggesting that this was not a one-time experiment, but part of a consistent pattern. That detail is what made the fallout so devastating. Had it been a fleeting misstep, perhaps there would have been space for forgiveness or explanation, but a repeated indulgence in such fantasies painted a portrait of a man addicted to taboo power dynamics, unable or unwilling to separate his personal satisfaction from the historical weight of oppression. The idea that this was his normal rather than his secret indulgence turned public sympathy into outrage. Observers were left to ask why a man of such stature, wealth, and influence would gamble it all on something so incendiary. The answer, some suggest, lies in the psychology of power. For men who live their lives at the top of hierarchies, the hunger for danger, for transgression, for stepping into spaces that feel forbidden can become overwhelming. What others see as shameful or destructive, they may see as exhilarating. If that was the case with Sharpe, then the texts weren't just embarrassing, they were evidence of a deeper compulsion that ultimately consumed him. The irony is that Sharpe's public image had long been that of the straight shooter, the man who told uncomfortable truths without fear of backlash. He played the role of the wise uncle, the cultural commentator who could laugh at himself while still commanding respect. That persona was carefully crafted, and for years it worked brilliantly, but the race play allegations cracked that mask wide open, because there is no way to reconcile unkempt, the truth teller, with the man who allegedly begged for humiliating scenarios behind closed doors. It created a dissonance too wide to ignore.
Alrighty, y'all. So the Shannon Sharpe ESPN does he still keep his job conversation is beginning to, I was going to say beginning to happen, but it's been happening, but I think now it's beginning to get louder because of different things that Attorney Busby has released, including the audios. So right now the conversation is, why is Shannon Sharpe still able to be on ESPN?
Sponsors and media partners recoiled quickly. While lawsuits can drag on for years, text messages spread instantly, screenshots flew across social media, fans dissected every line, and the court of public opinion delivered its verdict within hours. For networks like ESPN, this wasn't just a public relations headache, it was a credibility crisis. How do you let someone sit on a morning panel talking about leadership and accountability when his own private messages suggest he was reveling in fantasies many considered degrading? That question didn't just threaten Sharpe's contracts. It threatened the network's entire brand. Worse still, the controversy left his allies in an impossible position. Colleagues who might have defended him against lawsuits and old arrests suddenly went silent. To speak up now meant risking association with something far more radioactive than legal trouble. It's one thing to say innocent until proven guilty about courtroom allegations. It's another to explain away text messages in the man's own words. And so the silence grew louder, isolating Sharpe further, making him look less like a wronged man and more like one whose friends had seen enough to walk away.
Essence from Atlanta, him refusing to look at the evidence just gives me the impression that he wants plausible deniability, and maybe the evidence should be released so that way he does not deny his actions. I mean, if that was me, I would definitely want to look at the evidence to see what I did and did not do so I can maintain my innocence.
In the end, the race play controversy didn't just tarnish Shannon Sharpe's career, it shattered the mythology he built around himself. It suggested that the man who fought so hard to project strength, dignity, and self-respect was also the man who allegedly indulged in fantasies that mocked those very values. And that contradiction may be the cruelest cut of all, because it forces us to ask, who was Shannon Sharpe really? The icon who inspired millions? Or the hidden figure in those leaked messages who may have been living a double life the entire time? Meanwhile, the balance of power keeps shifting at ESPN. With Sharpe suspended and his reputation bleeding out, executives are already grooming replacements. Jason Kelsey's name has floated to the top of the list, his fresh-out-of-the-league candor paired with Stephen A. Smith's theatrics, creating a dynamic that suddenly looks more attractive than the old duo. Staffers reportedly described the atmosphere as unbearable while Sharpe was still on set, and his sudden exit came with sighs of relief. If that's true, it wasn't just scandal forcing the move. It was internal resentment finally winning. And who was waiting with open arms to shape the future of the show? Stephen A. Smith, the one man who seems to thrive whenever chaos clears the field.
That video will not be released. Attorney Tony Busby came out and said that they are not planning to release that video how they were dropping audio because it's a very strong point of their evidence in this case.
The contrast is brutal. As Sharpe fends off leaks, lawsuits, and tabloid ambushes, Smith is expanding his empire. He's booking film roles, sitting with late-night hosts, drawing in politicians for sit-downs, cementing himself as the face of sports commentary. The timing is too sharp to ignore. Sharpe falls, Smith rises. Could it be pure coincidence, or is Smith, as some insiders whisper, the quiet architect behind the fall, pushing buttons from within the very company where he reigns supreme? After all, Smith knows better than anyone how perception shapes power. He wouldn't need to fabricate evidence. All he'd need to do is let whispers spread, nudge executives towards skepticism, and wait for the inevitable avalanche. And so we arrive at the most haunting question of all. Is Shannon Sharpe the villain of this story, or is he the scapegoat of a perfectly executed takedown? The black book, the settlements, the betrayals, none of it leaves us with a simple answer. We may never know the full truth, but one thing is certain. His empire has collapsed, and the debris could bury far more than just him. So what do we think? Was this downfall inevitable because of Sharpe's own choices? Or was it engineered by those who stood to gain the most from his ruin? Drop your thoughts below, because this is one storm that isn't going away anytime soon. Until next time, stay sharp, stay watching, and remember, every empire falls, but the real story is who's waiting to rule the ashes.